A lot of action going on in the political world, not just the continuing government, I don't know, interaction, let's call it that. Not really a shutdown anymore, but temporary halt, we'll call it that, as well as all the Democrats running for president. And Alexandra Wilkes joins me. She's an attorney, senior vice president at America Rising Corp. Alexandra,
Hi, thanks for having me on, David.
it is it's interesting to see this. First of all, and I've said it before, I hate 2-year campaigns. The terminal campaigning in this country is too much, and I would guess that probably for a company like yours who focuses on campaign services might not be the best thing you want to hear from the host, but I just don't want to see the midterms end and the presidential begin. But here we are.
Well, for us at America Rising, the presidential campaign actually began 2 years ago. We've been tracking all of these various candidates who are now announcing, people like Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and Kirsten Gillibrand. We've been really tracking them for quite a while now. So, their campaigns are just sort of, their campaigns are just kicking off, but we've been watching them.
Yeah, but I know. What's in it for the system? Is the system gotten to the point where it's all about feeding itself? And again, you need a campaign structure in this country. Companies like yourself, the consultants to a degree. You've got pollsters. I mean, this is an industry, and to me, it's kind of like a business approach of being oversaturated, which could turn the American people off.
Sure. I mean, I think that certainly the American people are sort of sick of politics. I think in 2016, they really demonstrated just how tired they are with the politics, politics as usual. They sort of rejected both parties in the 2016 election in many ways. So I think that the American people are sort of tired of the incessant campaigning. But at the same time, though, what we know to be true is that Americans are more and more consuming information from different sources, not just, the same news networks, but from Twitter, from, all kinds of different digital sources. And, what we try to do at America Rising is to be there to sort of counter the bias that's on the left in the media, so that, the Democratic candidates who are out there and they're saying crazy things and they're saying things behind closed doors that they wouldn't say into the public, we're there to sort of expose that hypocrisy, because really, we know that we're not going to get a whole lot of help from our friends in journalism.
So for the average person listening, and that's most of us, you got to say that, but it really is most of us, we have a responsibility to filter out what we hear and see. We have a responsibility, especially with technology and search engines today, to look for more and find out what more context is. But are people doing that enough?
I think that that's exactly why a group like ours exists. We're there to sort of supply the content that they might be looking for, because, again, a lot of this information doesn't turn up in sort of traditional news reports. And we want to make sure that, this stuff sort of filters to the top and people are looking at it. And I think that a lot of people really are self-selecting their news, which, there are good sides to that and there are bad sides to that in terms of finding the truth. But I think that certainly the democratization of news sources has been a good thing for us on the right in terms of being able to get our message heard.
What about the narratives around campaigns? To your point of who's running on the Democrat side, when you look at it, the people that have all announced or in some way, stated their interest. Let's leave Howard Schultz out of it. He's thinking independent, so not really Democrat. It almost seems made up in a way that you've got Tulsi Gabbard, Samoan, Kamala Harris, mixed race, Elizabeth Warren, Kirsten Gillibrand. You had a temporary, maybe 24-hour period of an openly gay mayor. You have the Castro, that's the Hispanic approach. It almost seems like it's it's an ethnic play. It's an identity politics play to say, hey, we're out here representing, I don't know, whatever, instead of just, I'm qualified.
Sure, and I think that that's actually causing great pains within the Democratic caucus right now because you have, these older figures in the party, people like Bernie Sanders, people like Joe Biden, who are potentially thinking about running again. But, they're sort of considered to be, not representative of where the Democrats are right now in the fact that they're not what, the Democrats refer to as intersectional. They don't have a number of different diversity traits that would be appealing to different ethnic groups or to different, sort of socioeconomic groups. So, in the case of Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, they sort of lose points for being the older white guys in the room. I think that the Democrats are definitely looking more towards these different characteristics as they look to select a front runner. Kirsten Gillibrand, so that she gave a speech and she said that the future is female and intersectional, which means that, it's going to be based on an interplay of different, racial and ethnic and socioeconomic groups rather than just sort of maybe the most qualified. So, I think that you are right in pointing out that there's definitely a focus on these traits as opposed to maybe even who can win in 2020.
Well, much like, and call it what it is. By the way, intersectional, I've looked this thing up. It's something that was coined by a professor in the 1980s. I'm not saying all words need to be old, but this was basically coined and has now become part of, this new narrative around what everything needs to be or should be or combination thereof. And so to my point with that is this all seems to be around narratives. And what about qualifications? Let's get back to that point.
Well, in some cases, the Democrats are trying to sort of run away from the things that ordinarily would have been talked about as qualifications. Someone like Kirsten Gillibrand, for example, who is the one who made the statement about being intersectional, she used to be a blue dog Democrat. So talking about sort of her policy positions as opposed to...
She never was. Can I just debunk that for a moment? Kirsten Gillibrand came into the system, went to the district, played in the system, ran to win in the district, and then went on to win as senator. If you look at her real history of what she's written and said prior to that, her NRA rating, all these other things, and I wish my friends on the right would stop that. She was never a blue dog Democrat. She simply couched herself in a way to win an election.
I don't deny that, but I will say that at least on the left, she is approached with some skepticism for that reputation. And her comments about guns and her comments about immigration have caused great sort of heartburn for her as she's launched into this presidential race. Someone like Kamala Harris, for example, has a law enforcement background, and that is viewed with skepticism from Democrats. The fact that Cory Booker is maybe looking to get some Wall Street cash, that's also being looked at as problematic. So, these different, backgrounds and policy positions that in the past might have been considered to be, qualifications in terms of maybe the ability to work across the aisle or, to be more of a centrist, they're actually sort of plaguing these Democrats as they attempt to appeal to the leftmost fringe of their base.
Well, we will see how they do it. I still... Can we just start a movement to get to the point where nobody gets to announce till January 1 of the election year? I don't want to hear from you before then.
We can only dream, David.
I have to have my dreams, Alexandra. I have to have my dreams. It's sometimes all I have. What about what's going on in Washington? A quick thought from you on that. With the shutdown's over for now, and what's going on?
If I knew that, I would be the richest person in Washington. It's really, I think that what the president has done here is he's opened up this window of time for the Democrats to come to the table with a proposal. The president did come to the table with a proposal just 2 Saturdays ago, where he talked about, DACA in exchange for wall funding. He was like, I think, the first to really put out some concessions, and the Democrats totally shut him down. They said, we're not going to discuss anything until the government's back open. Okay, well, the president opens the government back up, and it seems like now they're really not. They're still not coming to the table with concessions on this, and so, I think that this is really just a play to their base on Nancy Pelosi's part. And we really might just be in store for 2 years of just absolute gridlock between the Democratic-controlled House and the Trump White House.
Well, we will see what they do. We will see what they come up with. Alex Wilkes, Alexandra properly. There we go. All right. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you, David.